That year, my parents passed away, and the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. I severed ties with my brother at his lowest point. 5 years later, his company went public, and he became Mr. Howard, a man admired by everyone. During an interview, a reporter asked who he was most grateful for over the years. My brother's expression was indifferent, his tone sarcastic. My sister, who abandoned me for money. The reporter asked, "Oh, how is she now?" The reporter launched a nationwide search for Mr. Howard's sister, offering a $10 million reward, but no one could find me. Instead, they found my diary from before my death. When the reporter handed the diary to my brother, Mr. Howard froze, trembling. He took it, but in the next second, he threw it into the trash. His tone was dismissive. "Is this Alice's new trick, or is this some stunt for the show?" The reporter shook his head, carefully picking up the diary and brushing off the accumulated dust. "This is indeed your sister's diary, and as for her body, it was cremated because it was unclaimed. The funeral home took care of it." Before the reporter could finish, my brother stood up in anger. "Don't think I'll forgive her just because of this trick. Tell Alice that I already have a sister. She means nothing to me, even if she's dead. I don't care." The reporter looked at him awkwardly and suggested, "Then, how would you like to handle this diary?" Mr. Howard sneered. "You read it. I want to see how she spins this. Goodbye, brother." April 1st, 2019. Hello, diary. From now on, please take care of me. You're the only one left to keep me company. Let me tell you, today I ran away from home with all the gifts my parents and brother bought me. But my brother caught me. I didn't want to face him. I just wanted to leave quietly, but my brother was persistent. He grabbed my hand and begged me not to leave, saying I was his only family. For a moment, my heart wavered, but I still asked him coldly, "The company's bankrupt. Can you still buy me the bags I like? I spend money recklessly. Can you afford to take care of me, rather than living with you, struggling to save money and live this hard life? I'd rather find a man who'll take care of me. I happen to know someone." My brother panicked and demanded to know who it was, warning me not to be deceived. He said he'd work harder and earn lots of money to give me the princess life I once had. But guess what I said? I said, "I'm willing to be deceived. Can you stop me? If you had the ability and money to support me, I'd still be your good sister and I'd come home. But when will you ever have money?" My brother, who had so much pride, actually knelt down to keep me from leaving. It was really pitiful. I turned my face away and wiped the tear from the corner of my eye when he didn't see. I slapped him, telling him not to cling to me, not to hold me back from my future. I even threatened to sever ties with him. That slap really stunned him. He stood there, frozen, watching me drag my luggage away. "I'm sorry, brother, it must have hurt." After reading this page, the reporter took a deep breath. I didn't expect Mr. Howard to care so much about his sister, but when the camera turned to my brother, his expression remained unmoved, still cold. He casually said, "I regret it." After a pause, he added, "I regret being so good to her in the past. I raised a thankless wolf." Hospital checkup, April 5th, 2019. Hello again, diary. Today, I went to another hospital for further tests. Honestly, I was hoping the previous diagnosis was wrong. Then I could go back to my brother and tell him I regret it. I just need to apologize and act cute, and he would forgive me like before. But life doesn't offer so many miracles, does it? The doctor, with a serious expression, told me. "Where are your parents?" "Primary liver cancer. It's already in the advanced stage. You need to be hospitalized immediately." I didn't really understand, but the fear of death made me cry. "I'm only 17. The doctor looked at me sympathetically and gave me the hospitalization fee slip. I ran to the payment machine, but then I secretly snuck out of the hospital. Forget it. My card is linked to my brother's main card. I'll save him some money. Anyway, I'll die soon. Why waste his hard-earned money?" Since the contractor my parents worked with went bankrupt and the project failed, the company's finances collapsed. My parents, under immense pressure, ran around trying to find a solution. They died in a car accident during a business trip. All the burden of the company fell on my brother. I saw people coming to take away valuable items from our house because of debts. My brother, to leave me money for studying abroad, knelt down and begged people. But in the end, the bank seized everything. To support me and pay off the debts, my brother borrowed money from everywhere, drinking until he ended up in the hospital, but he didn't have time to get treated, and with no money, he left after regaining consciousness and kept working. I begged him to wait until he was better, but he said he was tough and wouldn't get sick. He's so silly, isn't he? Actually, I wanted to help him. I wanted to tell my brother that I didn't need to study abroad. That I wasn't the delicate young lady from before. I could give up everything and even work part-time to support him, but at such a critical moment, I got the most expensive illness. Diary, don't you think I'm useless? The reporter's eyes were red. It seems your sister really had her reasons for leaving you. Getting liver cancer at such a young age is truly pitiful, Mr. Howard sneered. This is a good trick, Leo. Don't be fooled. Alice is the best at deceiving people. When we were kids, she would fake stomachaches to avoid school, and our whole family would panic and send her to the hospital. She was always a great actress. The reporter bitterly smiled and sighed. I hope she's just lying. No money, so much pain. April 15th, 2019. Hello, diary. I couldn't sleep last night. It's not that I didn't want to sleep, I just couldn't because the pain was unbearable. My illness is getting worse. I can't live without painkillers, but I have no money, however. There's something more important now. If I don't pay the rent soon, I'll be kicked out by the landlord. I'll really be sleeping under a bridge. Just like my brother said when we were kids, I used to dream of wandering the world, but now that I'm grown up, I'm so scared. No money. I had to put up the few gifts my parents gave me on a second-hand website. They're the few things I brought with me when I left. But someone actually asked about the price. I kept refusing, making up excuses. In the end, I couldn't bear it. Hungry and in pain, I withdrew $500 from my card. Brother, I'm sorry. I used your money again. Being poor has cured me of my picky eating habits. When I was starving, I even ate dirty bread that someone threw away in the trash. Actually, it wasn't bad. It seems that poverty can cure all princess syndrome. I bought a bag of bread, a bottle of water, and some painkillers, leaving the rest to pay for the rent. My teacher called me again. She advised me to study well and not to skip classes so much. She said my grades were too good to waste. I was afraid she'd contact my brother, so I suggested dropping out. But she still called my brother. Just now, my brother called me. His tone was cold and distant. Alice, I know you don't want to be involved with me. I don't care who you're with, but you shouldn't give up on your studies. Falling like this, don't you feel ashamed in front of our parents? It's been only 10 days since I last heard his voice, but it felt like half a lifetime. I covered my mouth, trying not to cry, but the tears couldn't stop. Brother, I miss you so much. On the other end of the phone, my brother, impatient, said one last sentence. If you keep doing this, I really won't care about you anymore. Then he hung up. I cried for a long time. Diary, I think I'll block my brother. Tomorrow, I'll go through the process of dropping out. The reporter noticed that Mr. Howard seemed slightly dazed. He paused for a moment, wiped the moisture from the corner of his eyes, and turned to the next page. Moved to a cheaper hotel. Met a kind sister. April 20th, 2019. Dear Diary, I've moved again. The original hotel was $51 a night, too expensive. I spent the whole day searching and finally found a hotel in the southern suburbs of the city, costing $31 a night. The room has 4 beds, and there's a strange uncle staying opposite me. From the first moment, I was scared of him. He would smile at me, and that smile gave me the creeps. He would also try to hold my hand uncomfortably. One night, as I walked out of the bathroom, I saw him slowly taking off his pants. Just then, a sister walked in, froze for a second, and slapped him across the face. Bastard, if you lay a hand on her, I'll ruin you. I looked at the sister gratefully. She stayed in the bed below mine. Her name was Sunny. She smiled at me. Don't worry, I've got you covered. Sunny was so kind. That night, I took some medicine and slept soundly. I had a dream. In it, Mom and Dad took me and my brother to Disney. I loved Nick the Fox, and my brother waited in line for hours to get me a photo with him. When it was finally my turn, my brother called my name and pushed me to Nick. I smiled so wide my eyes almost disappeared. Mom, Dad, and my brother watched me happily from a distance, but after the photo, when I turned around, they were gone. The sky, which had been clear, suddenly darkened. I was scared and started crying, searching for them. No matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find them. I woke up in fear, drenched in cold sweat. The sister looked at me with concern. Are you okay? I shook my head. She asked why I was staying there, and I told her everything. I don't know why, but I just trusted her. After hearing my story, she didn't speak, she just hugged me. Her embrace was warm and reminded me of my brother. She told me she was an orphan, adopted but suffered abuse from her adoptive father. Unable to bear it, she ran away. She started living on her own as a teenager, meeting all sorts of people, and learning many self-defense skills. She said, "A little sheep like you needs a big wolf like me to protect you." Sunny taught me many ways to save money. I would pick expired food at the supermarket. Sometimes they would compensate me with a little money, sometimes not, but they let me take the expired food for free. She also taught me to pick discarded vegetable leaves at the market, remove the spoiled parts, and blanch them in hot water to fill my stomach. Sunny also took me to do part-time jobs to make extra money. I earned 60 in one afternoon handing out flyers, holding the money. I felt like I wasn't a waste. I thought, if I could make this much every day, I could leave some money for my brother after I die. Thinking about that, I smiled. Sunny stared at me as if I were a fool. "You're so happy for making 60, I nodded. She tapped my nose and called me hopeless. Despite having to be wary of the strange uncle and make sure to brush up before the power and water were cut off at 10 p.m. My time at the hotel wasn't so bad, it was actually kind of happy. The power outage time was coming again. "Good night." The reporter noticed that when the creepy uncle was mentioned, even Mr. Howard, usually indifferent, clenched his fists. He thought, perhaps Mr. Howard didn't despise his sister as much as he had shown, but after a moment, he felt it might just be his imagination. He turned the page and continued reading. "Kind sister, goodbye, April 22nd, 2019. Dear Diary, I've moved out, yesterday. When I went to the bathroom, I coughed up blood, and my sister saw it. She, who had no savings, insisted on taking me to see a doctor. I hadn't told her I was sick, only that I had fallen out with my brother and moved out, but I couldn't hide it from her. Maybe I really am a jinx. I don't want to burden my brother, and I don't want to drag this kind sister, whom I've just met, down. She once told me that she wanted to open her own flower shop and have her own home. I won't let you die so young," she said with determination in her eyes. I smiled and nodded, but deep down, I thought, goodbye, sister. The next morning, I quietly left with my few belongings. Now I'm crouching to write. My legs are numb. Wait, let me rest a bit. All right, my health has gotten worse recently. I've started vomiting blood. Just now, I couldn't help it and vomited again. People passing by were terrified and kept their distance, pointing and whispering. I shrank into a ball. And it took me a long time to lift my head. That's when I noticed blood dripping on the diary. I quickly wiped it, but the stain just grew larger. "Sorry, dear diary, I didn't mean to get you dirty." I couldn't control it because it hurt so much. While I was resting, an old lady with shabby clothes came up to me and stuffed some money into my hand. There was both change and bills, but no matter how much I refused, she still left the money and ran off. I secretly followed her. I saw her with her disabled husband, and in his arms was a small child. She adjusted her hair, kissed the baby on the cheek, and went back to selling fruits. I waited a long time until it got dark. Half of the fruit was still left. The old lady sighed, and her husband comforted her. They started packing up, placing the baby in a basket to the side. I put on my hat, walked over quickly, and without her noticing, slipped the money into the baby's clothes, before the reporter could speak. Mr. Howard sneered. "Nice story, you almost had me fooled. Is she running out of money and starting to write novels to make a profit?" Leo reporter, "No need to keep reading, I'm pathetic, wasting so much time sitting here. Since she's playing dead and doesn't dare to face me, I'll just pretend she's really dead." "I don't care." He stood up, turned around without a trace of attachment. The interview abruptly ended, but once the episode aired, it went viral. Someone dug up the fact that after Mr. Howard broke ties with his sister 5 years ago, he had been visiting a mental clinic, speculating that Mr. Howard developed severe depression due to the loss of his parents and his sister's betrayal. After finding success in his career, he adopted another sister, moreover. Mr. Howard's sister's diary sparked heated discussions among netizens. The comments were mixed. Some criticized Mr. Howard's sister Alice. She faked her death for attention. Back then, she left her brother for money, making him face the crisis of bankruptcy alone. This caused him great emotional damage. Now, seeing her brother succeed, she starts playing the victim, writing diaries like this. She should have become a novelist instead of doing this. Gold digger, disgusting. She thought playing dead would soften her brother's heart. Too bad Mr. Howard already has a new sister. He even set off an hour-long citywide firework display for her 18th birthday and gifted her an entire building. He spoils her like a princess. Others defended Alice. I think there must be more to the story. This diary feels really real, and the emotions seem sincere. I don't believe someone who wrote this would be a gold digger. I also think there's more to this. No matter the opinions, one thing was certain, netizens were eager to know what Alice's next diary entry would reveal. To maintain the hype, the TV station contacted Mr. Howard's family again, asking if they could publish his sister's posthumous diaries. Whether out of disbelief or indifference, Mr. Howard's assistant replied, Mr. Howard said he doesn't care what happens to the diary. Whether you publish it or destroy it, he's only got one sister, Wendy. Some netizens found this satisfying. See, Mr. Howard doesn't care at all. Gold digger must be freaking out now. The Diary of Alice before her death, May 3, 2019. Dear Diary, today I found a puppy. I didn't want to take it in at first, but it limped behind me, whining as it dragged its injured leg. I thought I couldn't take care of it, so I kept walking, trying to ignore it, but after taking just 2 steps, I turned around. The moment I picked it up, the little yellow dog's eyes suddenly lit up. And it kept licking my palm. I sighed, knowing it must have sensed that I'm a soft-hearted person. I named it Lucky, hoping it would live a long life and not end up like me. Short-lived. I took it to the vet for a CT scan, and the cost of just the examination emptied my wallet. The surgery would cost $2,000. If you don't do the surgery, it will die, the doctor said seriously. I looked at Lucky, who was nestled in my arms, and nervously asked, "Can we wait a few days before doing the surgery? I don't have enough money." "You can't wait any longer. The surgery must happen by tomorrow," the doctor replied. I walked out of the pet hospital, feeling lost, and sat down on a street corner. I muttered to Lucky, "You're so foolish. There are so many rich people, yet you chose me, a dying person, and on top of that, I'm so poor. How can I find $2,000 for you?" Lucky didn't understand a word I said. It just wagged its tail happily, celebrating that it had a home. Seeing that, my eyes welled up again. Reluctantly, I walked to an ATM, hesitating to withdraw the $2,000. "This is the last time, brother. It's the last time I'll spend your money." But to my surprise, my brother had blocked my card. My heart sank. Of course, it made sense. After everything, I had already told him I would sever ties with him. He had no reason to give me money. I never planned to contact him again, but for Lucky, I had no choice. I unblocked my brother's number and called him. The phone rang for a long time. Just as I thought he wouldn't pick up, he finally answered. He snorted coldly, "Regret it. You blocked me and now you're contacting me. Didn't you say you wanted to cut ties with me, or did you run out of money?" His words choked me. I wanted to hang up right there, but Lucky reminded me, "Give me the $2,000. After a long silence, my brother asked, "You haven't contacted me in so long. You don't care if I'm eating well or sleeping well, or whether I miss you, do you? You just want money, right?" I bit my lip hard, the salty taste rising in my throat, but I forced it down. "Yes," I answered mechanically. There was a long pause, and then I heard him choke up. "Fine, you want money, right? I'll give you everything I have. Are you satisfied now? I shouldn't have hoped for anything from you, Alice. You really have no heart. From today, we're no longer siblings." He hung up. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I squatted on the ground, holding Lucky, and vomited, a lot of blood, but the dark ground absorbed it, and it seemed like it wasn't noticeable. Lucky seemed terrified. It kept whining and licking my face. I petted it, trying to calm it. It hurt, but I was numb to it. The pain in my heart was even worse. Looking at my phone, I saw that my brother had sent me $20,000. When I tried to transfer the extra money back to him, I realized he had blocked me again. I hugged Lucky and cried for a long time. I knew it was over. My brother truly didn't want me anymore. I once hoped he would forget me and cut ties with me, but now that he had, I couldn't breathe from the pain. Lucky, I have no home anymore. The live stream chat was flooding with comments. Wow, this is so heartbreaking. Even if this sister is pretending to be dead, this story is just too moving. I'm crying. Keep going. What happened to Lucky? Oh no, the dog can't talk. But it only knows how to celebrate having a home. What a tearjerker. At the same time, there were some comments accusing Alice of faking sympathy and playing the victim, but compared to earlier, these comments were few. Most people seemed more concerned about Lucky's safety now. Encouraged by the chat, Leo Reporters composed himself and turned to the next page of the diary. Painkillers, May 15, 2019. Dear Diary. Long time no see, I have some good news to share with you. Lucky underwent surgery and is now healthy again. It's an extremely clingy dog, though. Wherever I go, it follows me, even sleeping at my feet. Fortunately, Lucky is there to protect me when strangers touch my waist. But there's bad news. My illness has gotten worse. I don't know how much longer I have to live. Maybe less than a month. When I go to the pharmacy to buy painkillers, the store clerks always look at me warily, thinking I'm a drug addict. Thankfully, I still have my diagnosis to show them, and after begging a bit, they always relent, but the painkillers are becoming less effective. To sleep, I have to take more. Yesterday, while handing out flyers, I suddenly fainted on the street. Lucky was so scared, it kept licking my face and barking at me, which attracted a kind-hearted person to take me to the hospital. I calculated the cost. I'm not going to get paid for my part-time job, but I'm losing a lot of money. The doctor sternly warned me that I must be hospitalized immediately and that I should contact my family. If I continue like this, I might not last long. He didn't finish his sentence, but I knew what he meant. I casually made up an excuse and left the hospital quickly. Hospitalization, I can't afford that. It's too expensive. As I was leaving, I saw Lucky. As soon as it saw me, it rushed over. That night, the pain was so unbearable that I couldn't sleep. Lucky noticed my suffering. It was desperate but helpless, so it stayed close to me, licking me non-stop and whining as if it wanted to cry. I weakly reached out to comfort it, telling it I was fine, but the next second, I couldn't hold back anymore and ran to the toilet to throw up. It felt like I was throwing everything up. I don't know how long I vomited, but when I came to, I was in Lucky's licking embrace. I looked in the mirror and scared myself. I looked horrible. My hair was thinning, my complexion was yellow, and the chubby face I once had sharp cheekbones and a pointed chin. My brother once joked that my baby face made me look like I was forever 18, but now, I might really stay 18 forever. Staying young forever doesn't seem like such a good thing. I want to grow up slowly, stay with my brother, watch him build a family, and live happily. I washed my face and patted my cheeks to encourage myself. At least my brother won't see me like this. He would probably be terrified. I took some painkillers and managed to sleep. In the middle of the night, I started having a fever again. Dear Diary. It hurts so much, actually. I really miss my brother. I just want to see him one more time, even if it's from a distance. I think that wish isn't too much to ask for, is it? Meeting brother, May 20th, 2019. I'm going out to see my brother today. I'm bringing Lucky with me. I've prepared a hat, a mask, and a black trench coat. Looking cool, like a paparazzi. I just want to see my brother from a distance. Diary. Wait for me to come back. I'm back. My brother still looks as handsome as before, even taller now, but thinner. I originally just wanted to glance at him and leave, but he looked so unhappy. He used to smile a lot. Without thinking, I followed him. I didn't know why he went to the hospital. Why did he need to see a therapist? After he left, I asked his doctor, but he wouldn't tell me. After much pleading, he sighed and finally shared that my brother was very sick. The death of our parents hit him hard, and my leaving made him feel deeply guilty. He thought that if only he had done better, I wouldn't have abandoned him. As a result, he started self-harming. I cried, but then I laughed. My brother is so foolish. It's not him, it's me. I'm the useless one who only burdens him. My brother is the best brother in the world. He would save up his pocket money for a whole year to buy me an expensive birthday gift. He would beat up bullies who bothered me at school, even if it meant getting into trouble himself. After our parents died, he handled everything alone, bearing all the pressure while still providing me with a comfortable life. How could I ever think of abandoning him? Leo reporter paused and showed the diary to the camera. The viewers noticed that this page, aside from the neat handwriting, had traces of tears that had soaked into and dried on the page. She must have cried for a long time. The tears have soaked this page. Leo's eyes were also misty. He cleared his throat, his voice trembling from the emotion, and continued reading. I'm so useless, I can't do anything. I watched my brother walk past me, and I didn't have the courage to go up and hug him. In that moment when we made eye contact, he looked away. He couldn't recognize me anymore. It's probably better that way. I look like neither a human nor a ghost. He's better off not seeing me. I don't want him to be sad. Ready to die. May 30th, 2019, Diary. I've made up my mind. Instead of dying in pain, I'd rather end my life myself. Do you think I'm right? I've really lost my mind. I often talk to you and to Lucky, as if you'll respond. I've bought sleeping pills. But what about Lucky? I can't just leave him behind. I want to give Lucky to my brother, so he'll have someone to accompany him, and Lucky will have someone to care for him. I'm so clever, aren't I? But then I suddenly remembered tomorrow is my birthday. Just one more day. I don't want to die on my birthday. My coming-of-age ceremony, May 31st, 2019, last year, for my 17th birthday. Mom and Dad got me a custom-made Italian princess dress. I put it on, and Mom hugged me, laughing non-stop, saying I was the most beautiful princess. My brother gave me a gem necklace, sparkling, and very expensive, but all those gifts have been taken away due to asset seizure. Now, the only things left are the not-so-valuable ones, the ones I've carried around everywhere. When I don't have money for food, I can't bring myself to sell them. At night, I still hug the little bear Mom bought for me when I was 6, as if I'm hugging her. Mom, Dad, and brother had promised to hold a grand birthday party for my 18th coming-of-age ceremony to celebrate me, their little princess. But now, the only one by my side seems to be Lucky. I hold him, and that's the only warmth I feel. Lucky seems to sense my emotions, and he begins licking my hand and cheek with his wet tongue, trying to comfort me. It tickles, and I smile and kiss Lucky, holding him. I went to a cake shop to buy a small cake for myself. In the past, I didn't like the 3 or 4-layer cakes my parents got me, but now, after such a long time without having one, I'm drooling. I stood for a long time, looking at the hundreds of yuan price tag. When the salesperson impatiently asked me if I was going to buy or not, I noticed them glancing at Lucky in my arms. They frowned and said pets weren't allowed in the store. But I had just seen a girl with a huge Alaskan Malamute earlier. Maybe it's because Lucky is dirty. I haven't had the money to take him to a pet salon for a bath. I apologized repeatedly and bought the cheapest fruit cake cup, costing 20 yuan. I sat on a park bench, holding Lucky. There were no candles, so I silently made a wish in my heart. I hope Lucky stays safe. I hope my brother becomes successful and lives a long and happy life. I opened my eyes and fed the fruit to Lucky. He ate happily, as if celebrating my coming of age. I was really craving it, but after only a few bites, I lay down and threw up everything. Finally, I took Lucky to the pet shop and got him a bath. It cost 200 yuan. The shopkeeper said he had never seen such a well-behaved dog. I took the freshly cleaned Lucky in my arms, smelling the lovely scent of him. Lucky is the gift from heaven to me. Now, I want to give this gift to my brother, hoping he can take good care of Lucky, and also that Lucky can accompany my brother in my place. I also want to sneak the 20,000 yuan from my card into my brother's door. If all goes as planned, there won't be any updates, because tomorrow, I'll be going to another world, to be with my parents. Diary, I'll miss you, Lucky, I'll bless you, and brother, I'll always protect you. Everyone thought it was over, but Leo reporter, almost instinctively, turned to the next page. He saw what was written. Lucky died, June 1st, 2019. I'm sorry, Lucky, it's my fault I didn't take care of you. Did my brother think you had an owner, or did he not want you? I hid not far away, hoping my brother would take Lucky and leave. But Lucky broke free from the leash and ran toward me. If If I had handed him over to my brother myself, would he have been fine? I cried and begged Lucky not to leave, don't leave me, but he struggled to lift his head, whimpered once, licked my face, and then closed his eyes. I hugged Lucky and sang to him, the dog wants to listen to dog songs. As I sang, tears streamed down my face. I buried Lucky beside my parents' graves, on a small mound. The moon wasn't full tonight, but it was bright. Lucky, slow down, I'm coming to find you soon, Dad, Mom, brother, goodbye. Leo reporter finished reading the diary. His eyes filled with tears, the live chat exploded with comments, what, Lucky died, and did Alice die too? The author is so cruel, it's one thing to die, but why make the dog die too? The poor dog didn't do anything wrong, I'm crying so hard, I can't bear it. Reporter, is Alice really dead or is this just a gimmick? Is this a new way of promoting something? Leo reporter closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and said sadly, according to the police records and our investigation, Alice passed away 5 years ago. This isn't a stunt or a hoax, the deceased should be respected. Please be kind in your comments. As for this diary, we will preserve it, we will no longer respond to other questions. Thank you. With that, Leo reporter ended the live broadcast. The audience's curiosity remained unsatisfied, and many turned to Howard's Instagram, leaving messages under his posts. The search volume was so high, it even trended, Howard's sister Alice died. Alice's diary before she died. Is the diary content real? What happened to Lucky? The sister mentioned in the diary also posted a message online. Did Alice really die? I'm sorry, she left without telling me. I searched for her for so long but couldn't find her. I'm so sorry. If I had taken her to see a doctor earlier, maybe she wouldn't have suffered so much and left so soon. Most people were skeptical. But when she shared a photo of herself with Alice, smiling brightly, the resemblance between them was undeniable. That's when people started to believe the diary was real. The entire internet started mourning Alice and Lucky. Tributes poured in, one after another. Alice, Lucky, we'll bring you home. Alice, Lucky, are you okay in the other world? Finally, it caught the attention of Mr. Howard's assistant, who stared at his phone for a long time, hesitating before speaking. Mr. Howard, 5 years ago, did you ever see a dog? It was light beige. Mr. Howard looked at him in confusion. After a moment, he nodded. That day, when I returned home from work, I found a little dog tied to a pillar outside the door. It was light beige, with a pink nose, very clean and cute. It clearly seemed like a pet with an owner. I remembered, she loved animals, so I went up and petted it. The dog was very well behaved, wagging its tail at me. I thought the owner would return soon, so I went inside. Not long after, I heard shouting outside. I went to the window and saw a girl holding the little dog in the middle of the road, crying. She was crying so sadly, and it must have been the dog's owner. The dog hadn't seen its owner and had struggled to break free from the leash, only to be hit by a car. The assistant froze. Suddenly, his phone rang. He looked down at the document that had just arrived on his phone, and his heart sank. Mr. Howard, I'm sorry. I've been investigating the diary and your sister's whereabouts behind your back. He paused. She really died. The police registered her death 5 years ago. The death certificate is real, no forgery. She committed suicide by poisoning. The diary is also real. After speaking, the assistant didn't dare to look at Mr. Howard's reaction. He clicked open the relevant entries. Take a look at what happened to Alice. Her diary has been made public today, and I think you should know. Walking toward the door, he added, your sister really had a hard time. After leaving Mr. Howard's office and closing the door, the assistant still heard Mr. Howard's suppressed cries, gradually turning into sobs, like a child who had lost their most beloved treasure. The next day, Mr. Howard retrieved the diary from Leo the reporter. Mr. Howard had read that diary many times. So many times that he could almost recite it by heart. He tortured himself with it. He never expected Alice to be so ill. So seriously ill. She was so afraid of pain. How could she endure it? When they were kids, Alice would cry for an hour when she got an injection, her eyes swollen from crying, and it hurt him deeply. He had even asked a doctor why Alice was so afraid of pain. The doctor told him that everyone has a different sensitivity to pain. Some could bear it, while others couldn't. Alice was one of those who couldn't, for this reason. Mr. Howard had carefully replaced all the sharp corners of the furniture with rounded ones and laid soft carpets on the cold floors. He had protected her and watched her grow up, yet, the girl he had pampered all her life couldn't bear the pain of cancer and ended her own life. Just thinking about it made him feel unbearable pain. He could only breathe deeply, trying not to suffocate. He had wanted to tell Alice, during the interview, "I have money now, I can give you a better life. You can come back to me," but his pride had stopped him from saying it. Then, the reporter brought out the diary from Alice's final days. Mr. Howard was terrified. He feared it was true. He would rather hypnotize himself into believing his sister was still alive, that she had left him for a better life. But deep down, he couldn't bear the thought of her death. If Alice really died, if the diary was real, how helpless would he feel? But the truth would eventually come out. No matter how cruel it was, countless times, Mr. Howard thought about the night when he saw a person in deep sorrow, crying in despair, and he realized it was Alice who had lost her only companion. She had been utterly broken. She was his most beloved sister. How could he not recognize her? How could he not have recognized her? Maybe if he had, he could have saved her. I could have saved her, he thought, haunted by this obsession. It kept him up at night. He grew sick again. He knew it, but he refused to treat it, drowning his pain in alcohol. The usually sharp and composed Mr. Howard turned into an alcoholic. The business began to decline. His assistant advised him several times, but it didn't help. Eventually, he was even turned away from the office. Whenever his adopted sister, Wendy, who looked a little like Alice, approached him, Mr. Howard would scream in agony and guilt. In the end, he sent Wendy abroad for studies. One night, the guilt that had overwhelmed him in the darkness struck again. He knelt, took a knife, and drew it across his wrist. In that moment, he didn't feel pain, he only felt relief. Finally, it could end. He lay in a bathtub filled with warm water, closing his eyes in exhaustion. But in the haze, he heard Alice's voice. He opened his eyes wide. Alice was standing in front of him, as youthful and beautiful as ever. At her feet was a light beige dog, wagging its tail happily. "Alice, is it really you?" Mr. Howard asked, unable to blink, fearing that his Alice would vanish if he did. "It's me, brother. Please, stop torturing yourself. I told you, I'll always watch over you from above. You have to keep going. What happened in the past wasn't your fault. I've never regretted it, even though I'm gone. I'm happy to see you come this far. Please, live on happily for both of us." "Alice," Mr. Howard shouted, waking up suddenly, but Alice was gone, just a dream. He stood frozen, bitterly laughing as tears streamed down his face. "Alice, can you really forgive a brother like me?" "Alice, I'm not worthy," he murmured, "but I promise, from now on, this life is for you. I will live well, cherish my body. I will invest all my money in charity, to give cancer patients who can't afford treatment hope for survival. If there had been such an institution to help you, maybe everything would have been different." Mr. Howard called his assistant, who arrived promptly and sent him to a private hospital. After he was discharged, Mr. Howard established a charity fund in Alice's name, dedicated to helping cancer patients who were financially struggling. He also contacted Sunny, the person who had once helped Alice, intending to support her flower shop, but she refused. Sunny was deeply remorseful, blaming herself for not getting Alice the medical help she needed, which led to her passing. Mr. Howard often went to see Sunny, wanting to learn more about his sister's life in her final days. He couldn't help but tear up when he heard how Alice had once been overjoyed by finding a pound of spoiled vegetables at the market. Years later, Mr. Howard, now deeply involved in charitable work, suddenly passed away at home. His caregiver said that before he passed, Mr. Howard's eyes were filled with tears. He spoke incoherently, mentioning his deceased sister. "Mom, Dad, Alice, you've come to take me," he said. "I'm sorry, I didn't take care of Alice." The caregiver had never seen an elderly person cry so sorrowfully, but when he passed, Mr. Howard was peaceful, his face holding the contentment of a child. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.